you guys doing today? Excellent. All right. So we've developed a new technology that is right there, unlike anything people have ever seen before. It is a floating home. It looks like it's not floating. It's kind of an optical illusion. It is totally floating. It has a section under the water that creates the buoyancy that pushes the house so far up over the water that it's floating about 3.5 meters over the water surface. So it's unlike anything people have seen before. People often compare us to something like the Jetsons. And to be able to live on the water well, you really need to innovate in a lot of different areas to make it comfortable, to make it a nice transition from living on land to living on the water. So I was asked to come here to speak today to talk about some of the innovation that we have developed to make this possible. And so we think this is kind of like moonshot innovation in several different areas. Proceed, and it can be on land or it can be on water. And our vision is really to make it on the water, and then over the years people have just been in love with the idea so much of the technology and the design and the structure that they wanted us to put it on land, so we're doing that as well. So we'll talk about today moonshot innovation with architectural innovation, technology innovation, and sustainability, and trying to combine all of them into one complete system. So it's not just one or two of these things, but it's all three that come together to work together. And we really think that companies need to innovate to be able to stay relevant. A lot of companies that have been around for many, many years, decades or 100 years plus even, become irrelevant with technology. A lot of companies are becoming irrelevant because the pace of technological revolution and innovation is going so fast that if you don't keep up, then you start to fall behind and become irrelevant. Like companies like Kodak that almost became completely bankrupt overnight. Same thing with companies like Blockbuster, who were the #1 video rental company, and then who's even seen a VHS player in the last 10 years. So we really think innovation is super important. So this is the actual prototype that we just put it in the water a couple months ago. We had our grand opening event on the 60th anniversary of the Jetsons. We started in Panama because it's outside of the hurricane zone. It's a really easy place for us to start this kind of technology. We're actually now engineering a hurricane resistant model that could potentially even be in Miami. I met with some people at the Miami government today and a meeting at the mayor's office tomorrow, so you never know, we may even bring them here. So that's the show home. So the benefits of having a lot of innovation in these different areas is that it helps build your brand. If you're doing something really innovative, it really helps to build your brand in the market, and creates brand recognition, creates media coverage. We've had tons of media coverage because people really like to see some of the innovation that's happening, and they give you free coverage, which is super valuable to expose yourself and build your company's brand even higher. And it's also brought in a lot of really amazing partnerships. So some of the media coverage, this is just for the last 3 months. We've been in Architectural Digest about 2 weeks ago. Then we have them coming in again in about a month to make a video for a new video series that they're launching. We've been in Rob Report, CNN, CNBC, National Post, pretty much every major media company in the world has covered us over the last 3 years, but this is just the last couple months. Some of the partnerships we've developed as a result of doing all the innovation is some really amazing companies like Miele, the appliance manufacturer. We have a lot of partnerships with universities that we're doing coral restoration work with, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. So if any of you are interested in what we're doing, you can get more information by scanning the QR code, and we'll send you more information about what we're doing, or if you have any questions afterwards, then you can ask them there. So we have innovation in architectural design. We have the leading architect for floating structures that is helping us to design what a futuristic floating city could look like. And this is the original design we came up with, which is kind of what people look at and say that that looks like the Jetsons. So that's our original flagship model. And then we have our eco model, which is the first unit that's actually on the water that people can come and visit and stay in. This is our, I wanted to give you a little bit of a view of what this looks like, because this is what you see above the water. And below the water, it has an additional structure. I don't know if this works. Oh yeah, that works. So under the water, you see this, these tubes. There's actually 3, and we call this a tripod model because it has like a steel tube tripod under the surface of the water. It's also under the wave line, so the waves just pass over the structure, unlike a boat that moves a lot, because the floating structure for the boat is actually on the wave line where all the motion is. So we have the flotation under the wave line, and there's very little interaction with the waves. So when a big wave comes along, you barely move compared to any boats that are, like we have our unit in the water in a marina in Panama, and all the other boats are moving, but there's very little movement on our part. And then below that, you can see that we have an anchoring system, so we're anchored in place and we don't just float away. So it is completely floating, even though it doesn't look like it's floating at all, because it's kind of an optical illusion. And under the water, it looks something like that. So some of the challenges of innovation, we had our big launch in September 21st and 22nd. We had people from all over the world fly in to see this, and we had government officials, we had ministers and leaders of the country coming out, and we had about 80 new innovations that we were launching and showing all simultaneously. And as a result of that, Murphy's Law tends to creep in and problems happen. So we had 2 technical failures that happened at the same time, which was a little bit of a problem because we had a little technical issue, which we fixed right away. But it was just some of the things you have to go through, some of the growing pains you have to go through with innovation. You have to be willing to have problems, and so this was all over the news, but we got a few $1 million worth of free advertising from it. So worked out okay. And so for technology, we have a lot of technology moonshots we're working on. We'll talk about some of them here. This technology is really a combination of a lot of different kinds of innovation. There's mechanical engineering that goes into this. There's software engineering. There's hardware engineering. There's civil engineering. There's mechatronics, which is a combination of electrical engineering, electronic engineering, mechanical engineering, software, hardware, telecommunications, circuitry design for IoT technology. Then we have marine engineering. It says marine. So it's marine engineering and marine biology. So a lot of things had to come together to make this happen. So we're really trying to give you an idea of some of the innovation that maybe this can inspire some ideas and some innovation ideas for your locations, for what you're doing in your business. We looked for a way of delivering, because now if we have a floating home in the middle of, maybe 10 miles away from anything, maybe only a kilometer away from something, we need a way to deliver services. So we looked for a drone delivery technology. We couldn't find any, so we built our own system to do this, because there was no off-the-shelf system that allowed us to be able to do a drone delivery technology service. So we developed this technology where we can deliver pizza and a beer for a meal, or any other item that's under 6 kilograms. We can deliver by air. And This could be convenience store items. This could be emergency medical or aspirin or Tylenol for headaches or anything else guests may need. And that can be out there in a matter of minutes. So it's a really great way of innovating, and it doesn't exist out there. Follow me. We just won an award for this from the Radical Innovation Awards. I don't know if any of you guys heard of the Radical Innovation Awards. So we just got an award for this. This is a system we designed where we wanted to have the entire house so it configures itself to your preferences. So when you walk into the house, you swipe your smart ring in front of the reader, the door unlocks, but then the house comes alive with your preferences. And this can be applied with guest rooms. And what's interesting is that this technology can it can follow a guest from one location to another, to another, to another. So their music preferences would load automatically when they enter the home or the room, and it can load their lighting preferences. They can have saved preferences for lighting for maybe dinners. Maybe during the days, I like to personally work with blue tone white, which is very good for activating the brain and keeps you alert and gets you kind of awake. And then in the evenings, you usually want to go to a yellow tone white, which is good for slowing the brain down, getting ready for sleep. And then you can have your customers set all their own preferences for the lighting if you have a compatible system. And they can move from property to property, and the house just configures itself to that setting. This can also work with things like the coffee maker. We'll show you that a little bit later, and some of the other integrations that can follow. So we have our smart ring that I'm wearing right now, and you can swipe the smart ring in front of the door to open the door and then set the preferences for the house. But it also works with the shower. I personally don't like going to hotels where you have to turn the water on and then you have the rain shower, cold water coming on you, and you have to step out of the way before you get a cold wake up surprise. And then you have to wait for it to adjust, and then you might have to step under the shower again to adjust the temperature a bit. So with this system, you swipe the ring in front of a hidden surface, and the shower activates itself to your customer's preferred temperature as well as pressure settings. So it's a really nice way of customizing the user experience because it's always the perfect temperature for them. And if they are traveling with their partner, then their partner can swipe their ring in front of the shower, and it'll activate the shower to their own preferences for temperature as well as pressure. So it's a really nice way of delivering a customized service that is unique to them, and that can follow them from location to location. And they can come back to any of your properties a year later, and they can still bring the same ring, and it can help with check-in, but they can also swipe it over the smart reader in front of the shower in a property a year from now, and it will remember their settings. And then they always have the perfect shower. They have the perfect coffee settings as well, perfect lighting, and all these things can be saved to their preferences. And some people might not want to play with all those settings, but you're going to have tech people like me that just would love to geek out their experience and create it so it's really customized to you. So smart shower, we have we already talked about that. And then there's the luxury shower part of it is that we have an overhead rain shower. We also have body massage jets and then a handheld shower. And your settings can remember which nozzle you like to use, whether you prefer overhead shower or a handheld massage or body jets. And you can turn them on and off as you wish. You can even do something like what we became popular, I think, since COVID with There's the Wim Hof method. I don't know if any of you ever heard of it. It's a way of stimulating the body's immune system by having a cold shower. So what you do is you have a warm shower for most of the shower, then the last minute or so you have a really cold shower at the end. So you can do the Wim Hof mode, as I call it. So you can have a pre-programmed set for your shower where you have a 5-minute shower that is normal, and then at the end it gives you a beep and then switches over to a cold shot. It beeps so you know that the cold shot is coming, so you're not surprised, you don't have a big surprise for you. And then that also kind of stimulates you, gets you woken up as well, and it stimulates your immune system, so that's great. Smart toilet. So we have a smart toilet that is touchless. You don't have to touch it to do anything. You don't have to touch a button that a lot of other people have touched, and you don't know if it's very sanitary. There's a foot swipe, so you can swipe with your foot to flush. You can talk to the computer to flush. It also has a bidet sprayer, so it can spray and do a little drying session afterwards, which is a more hygienic way of going to the bathroom, but it's up to your guests. Most people are used to toilet paper, so it's a little bit of a learning curve. So you don't have to do a learning curve to use the toilet, but you can use whatever level of tech. You can ask the toilet to flush itself, or use the air dryer, or you can just push the button with your foot if you prefer something old school. We have embedded charging surfaces, so you can charge your phone. Users can charge the phone just by placing the phone on a smart surface. We're even developing a version 2.0, which uses something similar to what Apple has with the magnetic backing, so your phone always clicks to the right spot. And with that, actually, by having the two magnetic surfaces aligned, it actually helps to charge faster. So maybe your lights change color, maybe they dim, maybe the bedside reading lamp comes on, maybe nighttime music comes on, so you can maybe have a relaxing music that starts to calm you down for the night. And all these settings can be saved in the system and be used day after day or for your guest's next visit. We have a smart sunroof, which opens and closes depending on whether it's too hot. If it's really warm in your home, it can open for a draft, and you can have the airflow better. If it starts to rain, it can close automatically. Private voice assistant. I'm a big privacy nut, so I like to have a private voice assistant, so it doesn't necessarily have to connect to the cloud, doesn't have to connect to Amazon or Google or Apple to be able to control it. So we have a private voice assistant. And smart blinds that open when it's time to get up in the morning, so it can also be tied to the bed presence sensor, so when you get out of bed, the drapes can open automatically, and when you go to bed, they can close automatically, or you can set it however you want if you have different preferences. The other cool thing about the Ring is if you use it with automations, we have different surfaces throughout the house, so it's kind of like you have a smart wall surface, and you can swipe your hand in front of the smart surface, and then cool automations can occur. So you can program it to maybe the one in the kitchen can do a dinner automation. If you swipe it in front of the in front of the sensor between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m., then it'll trigger this dinner automation, which would maybe turn on dinner lighting for you. It will maybe start your dinner music, and maybe even send a call to the drone delivery service to deliver champagne and something else, maybe some chocolate and some treats for 20 minutes after you've started your meal, so it'll be a nice little surprise. So there's really cool things that you can do like that. It's a very smart home. There are technical things that go wrong with it, so you do have to have a technical team on hand because it's the technology. Sometimes does go wrong, so you want to have a good technical team available. Whole home audio, just it is what it is. It's just a smart home system that also has good audio, makes a big difference. When we first had our home go online in September, we didn't have audio throughout the whole house. We just had it in the living room, and it made a huge difference having it throughout the house. It really added to the guest experience. We just started overnight guest stays a week and a half ago, so it's really nice to start having people in there. But it sucks for me because I'm living there during the week because I've been building it for the last 3.5 months, so I just have to leave home for the weekend when we have guests in right now. We'll be starting full-time guest services in middle of January next year. So sustainability as well. This was a big thing for me personally. I didn't want to get involved in this project unless it had a really strong sustainability. I really had no interest in building a real estate project or a floating home project, but I was living in a floating home before I started this project, and that's why I kind of got interested. But what really sold me on the whole idea was the sustainability angle that we could create with this. So we had a sustainability moonshot. We have a solar roof, so we produce our own power. This is actually our new one that we're developing right now. It just went into production this week, and it will be on the unit that will be probably launching in March or April next year. So it should happen pretty fast, and we can produce about 30 or 40 kilowatt hours per day, which is enough to run the system, like everything that we need to run. If you're going to use a lot of electricity, if you're using a lot of the cooking appliances, it might not be enough power, but we're really relying on doing food delivery for our clients, and we're assuming they're not going to do a lot of cooking, so it's enough power for that, and air conditioning and things like that. And a big part of sustainability is we want to be able to live in nature without disrupting nature. So here we can have these pods that can even be like tree houses in remote areas, and they give you an elevated view, so you have really incredible views of everywhere. And you also don't have to destroy the environment to put these homes up, because the footprint is only 1.5 meters diameter, and then the house is above the land, so you don't have to cut down a lot of trees to make space for them. We also use rainwater collection on the roof to produce a lot of the water that's needed for the house. Depending on the area, there may be a lot of rain or a little rain, depending on the part of the country you're in or the season you're in. But here in where we're at in Panama, there's plenty of rain, so we can produce all the water we need from the rainwater collection, and then we put it through a filtering process to make it usable in showers, dishwashing, sinks, and kitchen and bathroom sinks. And we have a very unique experience we're building into the pods as well, which is what we call Reef AI. And it's this underwater camera that you can see right here. And it has a built-in wiper blade system that cleans the surface, the windows, every hour. It goes through and cleans itself. So you can have displayed on the TV inside the home, you can have the view from under the water of what is underneath your home or underneath the pod that you're staying in. And it's really interesting because now we're connecting this now up to AI to be able to identify different fish or different species that are in the water. So if you really love octopus, you can have an alert that sends you a picture, text notification on your phone, or maybe pulls it up on the view screens in the house or on the tablets, and you can see the octopus that just is swimming by the camera, or a dolphin, or anything you like. So it's a really, really neat thing. But it also, what we wanted to do is also help create a closer connection between the guest and nature, and in this case, the ocean. And that becomes something very, very memorable because they've never seen it before, and it really connects them to the property, because now they can have their own pictures of a diving experience that they may not want to actually go diving, but they can now have this connection with the ocean. And it's pretty cool. We also have a 3D printed coral project we started, which is using a very special 3D printer to print with clay material. And the clay material is just earth, basically. Usually 3D printers use somewhat toxic material. It's usually plastics. But in this case, it's just earth put into the printer, and then it prints these very beautiful structures that become a home and a habitat to sea life, to fish, and we can even design them to appeal to different kinds of fish, or lobsters, crabs, and other sea life. And we can create experiences where guests can go swimming, go snorkeling, and plant the coral by themselves, and create a very unique experience that they've never had before. So they can actually plant coral, and they can get pictures of them planting coral, and they can even do it close to the camera, and then maybe have pictures automatically sent to them at maybe once a month or once every couple weeks, so they can see how their coral's doing. So it creates a connection over time to the customer. And here's a view of us planting these little things here. These are actual coral fragments being planted inside of the 3D printed coral structures we made. And these are small structures. They're made in the shape of a starfish. I don't like the white on there. It looks kind of unnatural. So that's going to be this process of innovation. We have to next get some coloring to it so it looks more natural, but it's a really good start. And then guests can actually go through the process of planting it themselves, which we're actually already doing. So that's really what we're trying to do, is create a sustainable solution that guests can participate in, and that gets them really connected to the property, and it makes it very unique and memorable. And then they talk about it, they share it on social media, they tell all their friends about it, and that really helps to bring in future traffic and customers to the property, because people will go away with having amazing experiences. And we're trying to create as many unique experiences as possible, and this is an incredible collection of all these different experiences together. And so you can maybe start to think about where these unique experiences can be embedded in your customer's visit. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go overboard like we've been doing. We have about 150 different projects, tech projects, that we've been working on to bring all this together. So it's a lot. But if you do some of these things, then it can help to encourage repeat visits. And with services like the Follow Me technology, where your customers' preferences can follow them from property to property. If you have different properties throughout the US, and maybe also in the Caribbean, maybe in Europe, and different parts of the world, imagine if your guests' preferences follow them from property to property. That's really powerful, because then when they go to rebook their next trip somewhere, for the next family vacation or whatever it might be, they're more likely to want to go back to you, because they've already tweaked the settings on their app to be able to have it customized to them, so they know when they wake up in the morning, they're going to have the coffee that they want, or they're going to have the lighting that they want. They'll have all their preferences already set. They have their shower. It's going to be the right temperature. They don't have to fiddle with adjusting the temperature. It really creates an amazing experience. So I left some time for questions at the end. But our next moonshot we're organizing is what we call Jetsonville. Since people love that, the play on the Jetsons, we decided to create a whole floating community. We've just signed an MOU with quite a few different places. Maldives is one. We have one coming. I'm not sure if I should mention all the countries, but we have about 4 different countries we're signing MOUs with to develop a floating city, which could be very interesting, and integrate all these technologies so you have a futuristic floating guest experience. And that's kind of the aerial view, so you don't see the detail, but that would be about 2,000 people that could live in that floating community there. So if you want any information on what we're doing, again, show the QR code. You can get more information on who we are and what we're doing, and if we can help you in any way, then happy to have conversations. We'll have more conversations after the talk in the social mixers that we'll have later on today. So happy to answer any questions now if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, thank you very much.
We actually do have a question here.
Okay.
Thanks ever so much. So I'm curious to know how you manage water desalination, clean water delivery, and also the removal of waste products. You mentioned marina technology or marina engineering.
Yes.
Could you just give us a couple of minutes on that, please?
Sure. Yeah, that's one of the 150, or that's a couple of the 150 tech projects. This presentation would be days long if I talked about everything. So desalination is great. It uses about 450 watts per hour to make about 60 to 70 liters of water, which you need to run probably for about 3 to 4 hours to produce enough water for the home or for the guest stay. And that's not quite enough. That's a lot of power, and that would be a lot of roof space for solar, and we'd like to reduce that as much as possible. So we do have a desalination machine on board, but we're trying to rely more on the on rainwater catchment to produce our water. So, and where we're in Panama, in 5 minutes of rain, that'll produce enough water for a couple of days, no problem. So we're using that primarily, but if we need to go to a backup, then we can use desalination. We also have a system that we're putting in the shower, which is based on an open source technology called a shower loop. You can look it up at showerloop.org, and they build a system that recycles the water from the shower, because they realize that 90% of the water that's going down the drain is clean, mostly clean, and it's already warm, so you don't need as much warm water to warm it. So if you put it through a quick recycling phase, like through a few really simple filters, then you can reuse the water, and you can use about 90% less water in your shower. So you can have a 20-minute shower but only use 2 minutes worth of water. So that's really great. We're building our own version of that has what's called a turbidity sensor that senses if there's too much toxins in the water. Like it basically, if the parts per million of things in the water goes too high, then it will divert the water into the gray water tanks instead of recycling it, just so you don't clog up the filters too quick. So if you're using shampoo and soap, and that's going to go through into the gray water automatically, gray water tanks. But after that's all washed out, then it just starts to recycle all that. So that's a couple of technologies there. Then for the gray water treatment and liquid black water, we have a process called electrocoagulation, which has been around since the late 50s, I think since 58. And that puts all the water through a series of flat metal plates with an electric current going through them, and that causes a little bit of a chemical reaction, electrochemical reaction, and all the particles that are in the water coagulate together, and then they can be filtered out much more easily. And this can even filter out things like pharmaceuticals that might be peeing down in the toilet, and soaps, oils, detergents, things like that can all be coagulates quite nicely, whereas normally that really plugs up the filters, and that doesn't work very well. So that's another thing. And we have a couple solutions we're looking at for the solid waste treatment. Right now, immediately, we're removing it and putting it into a biogas system, so it actually gets turned into biogas. But that's very manual, and it's not an ideal solution. We're working on a system that can filter it or take care of it on the actual station, and we have about 2 technologies for that. Is there any other questions? You had quite a few, and I'm not. I think I. Okay, permitting. Okay. Yes, good question. We're actually registered as a boat. So it doesn't look like any boat you've ever seen before, but it is a floating vessel, and we have anchors. So we put 3 anchors down, and as long as you're someplace where you can put a boat, then you're okay. And that will vary from country to country and from state to state and county to county. There's a couple areas we're looking at around Florida that we would really like to put some of these, and there's different rules in different locations that we have to look at to see what kind of rules we would fit into and how to make it work in those locations. And in some locations we can put floating systems. Some we may have to use a piling that goes right into the seafloor. That would require different permitting completely, because then you're not a floating vessel, then it's not a boat anymore. It's different. So then on land, then you have to go through a different permitting, and that's you have to just go through the process of that. We're doing that process right now in Panama. It's pretty easy to do it down there compared to in the States, but we're starting that process in a few states in the U.S. right now. So, any other questions? I have about 2 minutes left. Yes? Okay, the question is, what's something like this cost? The starting price without, bare bones is $295,000 US starting price. It goes up to 1.5 million at the high end if you get all the tech, like the solar panels, the water recycling technology, all the smart home tech. Not all the smart home tech is ready yet. We're still working on the integration with Miele, with their engineers. They have some really smart home tech, but it doesn't communicate well with other systems, so we're having to, well, our engineers kind of hacked it, but we haven't told them yet, but so we're working on that to have an official communication system that communicates with their technology, but we have a brilliant engineer that is really good with hacking things, so he's already done some cool things. So any other questions, or I guess we're done. So thank you very much. I appreciate your attention.